improve community safety. Yes, we belong to different political parties. I belong to a political party because I grew up in the struggle. That shaped my identity, the way I see things. I haven't shifted from that posture. But we live in a democracy. We are adversaries sometimes and competitors, but we are all public representatives, and we have a duty to work together in a non-partisan fashion to address the issues of community safety. So I'm so pleased that they are here. I listened attentively to what they said, and I will meet with the Premier on Thursday, because he is the Premier of this province. And him and I also need to work together. Now, I was appointed about a month ago, I think, said it? I don't know how long. And appointed in the middle of this crisis in the country. It's a multifaceted crisis. It's a socioeconomic one. It is certainly a crisis of safety and security. So what have I done? I got in touch with the National Commissioner, and I shared my thoughts about the reasons why we have an explosion of gang violence, an epidemic of gang violence, and what must be done about it. Shared some thoughts with him. He responded. I said to him, we need to increase deployment of police. We need a stabilization plan. We need to confront the gangs with patrols, with raids, with arrests, with prosecutions. They have to understand that they cannot kill our children and expect those who are us have the solemn responsibility to govern our people and to protect them. We cannot allow our communities to be controlled by gangs. The more violent they are, the more determined we have to be. That's why he's here. He's not here just because we want to make a show. No. And so the first thing after coming to the Western Cape, I met the National Commissioner and the Provincial Commissioner with the head of crime intelligence. Why crime intelligence? Because we cannot win this fight without strong intelligence capabilities. These people are infiltrating our organizations. I don't know how far it goes. I've heard stories about how they've infiltrated CPFs. I hear stories about how there's a confluence in some areas between policing and criminality. Even people who are elected to lead our people, so there is also a trust deficit. You, as you're sitting here, I don't know whether you think you can trust me. I will attempt to earn your trust. Don't give it Pansel. Now, so the Provincial Commissioner and the head of crime intelligence presented me with a plan. They must still implement that plan. They must still resource that plan. That plan that is needed, so we need a stabilization plan. We need to go on the offensive against the drug lords. Stabilize our communities. Make sure that we are in charge, our people are in charge, not the criminals. But the plan we need to defeat the gangs, I don't believe that plan is yet in place. The truth, I don't know, Reverend, if I'm quoting correctly, the truth shall set you free. Yeah. Someone else said this was a political theorist: tell no lies, claim no easy victories. So let's start there. We are at the beginning, only at the why? Because I know that we've had gangs in our communities, and they are our children that grow up into gang leaders. I also grew up in a community where drugs were peddled, where there were, actually I don't think the problem of gang violence was so bad in Actonville. But what is now happening in our country, and you have to appreciate this, it's not just a problem in Mitchell's Plain. I think that these gangs are now evolving into organized crime, transnational crime. You see how rich these people are becoming. They've got resources. They can recruit people and pay them. They are paying, I understand, 2,500 rand, more than they can be paid in any employment. And they're growing vicious. They are becoming killers. And I believe, Commissioner, this is a problem throughout the country. So the country needs to understand that we have an organized crime problem. We are behind the curve. We have to, and I will be communicating with colleagues in the JCPS cluster and with the President, we're behind the curve. We need a serious plan to organize construction mafias. How many mafias do we have in? It's just they are breeding like flies. And in this environment of socioeconomic depression, they are growing. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this because I think we must face up to the situation we are now confronting. So, in addition to a stabilization plan, we need a plan to fight organized criminality. So I've asked the station commissioner, in addition, having listened to you, I should have mentioned yesterday we had a meeting with all the station commissioners. 67 of them were present, and the others were online. But I heard throughout the Western Cape the same stories. Under-resourcing, problems with the vehicles. Maybe the chairperson of the committee has a solution. Because what the situation currently is not optimal. We have we don't have enough detectives, and those do we have? I mean, I'm told that the dockets are building up per detective. Do we have enough detectives? The commissioner has been telling me that over the years, maybe the last decade, we have been losing more police officers than we're recruiting. So today we have less police officers than we had 10 years ago. Am I right, Commissioner? That's the truth, throughout the Western Cape and throughout the country. So when I listen to you and I say to the Commissioner, I put him under pressure to say, I want a resourcing plan for Mitchell's Plain. Not only that, I want a resourcing plan for the 13 stations. At least you can start there. He whispered back in my ear, yes, he can do it. Then I said, how long? He said 2 weeks. Now, what I want to do is to come back to Mitchell's Plain with a resourcing plan for the 13 stations. Take your time, Commissioner. You don't have unlimited time, but take the time to develop a serious plan, because the objective of being here today is to listen to you. I do not know. You know more than I do about the problems in Mitchell's Plain. I've learned a lot today. I took detailed notes. The Commissioner was also taking detailed notes. And I've asked my staff to produce a plan or a document from this meeting. I want to see line by line the issues that were raised by every speaker to say, can we deal with this matter? Because no one has raised an issue that doesn't need attention. But not every issue that you've raised can be addressed now or in the short term, because you all know our economy has been stuck for the last several years. It means that we are not generating the revenue that's needed. It means that the economy is not producing the jobs that are needed. And I think the safety and security crisis that we face in the country, and all of you have said this, is a reflection of the socioeconomic and development crisis. We cannot deal with the issue of gang violence unless we deal with issues of education, of youth development, of unemployment, and of poverty. And that's why we need to talk to the other departments, including the Premier, because the provincial government has important responsibilities. And I want to discuss with the Premier what resources are being, for development, are being targeted at communities that are disadvantaged because of our history, but continue to be disadvantaged. You know, I have not been in the Western Cape and Cape Town for a long time. When I go to Cape Town, I see a version of New York. I have been amazed by the shiny buildings that have come up. But the reality of people in Cachalia and Langa and Mitchell's Plain have not changed. The Premier has a responsibility, but it's not only him, because the national government has to deal with these questions as well. In the national government, we have a government of national unity. So this is not finger pointing. But I do not think that we can deal with the issues of safety and security in Mitchell's Plain or on the flats without having a plan to deal with the development issues. And we're going to make an effort to talk to the other ministers. But they too are going to say, we have limited budgets. They don't know where to look sometimes about the problems that have to be addressed, because they are everywhere. But I am not saying to you, because the problems are everywhere, that we don't need a specific response in the Western Cape, in Mitchell's Plain, and at least in those 13 stations. We cannot accept the situation as it currently is. Now, the issues of the criminal justice cluster, the Deputy Minister of Justice was also here for a reason, because there has to be alignment. Policing, the Justice Department, and corrections. Now, I had a discussion with Minister Groenewald. I'm going to have another discussion with him. I suggested, you know, I'm not a police officer. I'm not the head of corrections. I'm not an expert in those matters. But my responsibility is to listen to what the community is saying. Now, I said to them, in the old days, the police knew how to deal with activists. I was one of them. They would arrest us and take us to different stations across the country to break our organization. Now, I want to know what we are doing with the gang lords in our prisons. I believe they should be transferred out of the prisons they are in, transferred to stations, high security stations, if necessary kept in isolation, and they should not have access to communication devices. That's not a violation of anyone's human rights, because you don't have a human right to be a gang leader. You don't have a human right to shoot children. You don't have a human right to peddle drugs. When you behave that way, you surrender the rights law-abiding citizens have. So I want them, but I don't know if it's feasible, because I've been told, for instance, when you transfer them out, then they spread the disease everywhere. But to me, as part of the initial response, that is something that should be considered. Now, Jamil he has a list of the stations, of the prisons, which also illustrates how important it is. I know that you cannot take your life into your own hands by sharing information sometimes when you don't trust who you are conveying that information to. And we need whistleblower legislation. Such legislation has been drafted. It is in the Department of Justice. President promised that that legislation would be passed, and I hope it will be passed by the end of the year. But what Jamil was saying showed how important the intelligence, the information that you have in the community, without endangering your own safety, find a way to share that information so that the police can be more effective and targeted in their response. Now, there's a lot else that has occurred to me in dealing with the problem of what I'm now calling organized crime. We're not just dealing with the gangs of 20 years ago. They've evolved. They're using technology now. They're very wealthy people, many of them. And the others, the small and younger ones, want to become as wealthy as the ones they see. So we have an asset forfeiture unit. I want to know what they can do. I want to know what the NPA can do. I don't understand why gang lords are released on parole. I don't think they should be released on parole. I think parole should be suspended for known gang lords. I think that the message to magistrates, yes, I'm not entirely in agreement with the Deputy Minister on this matter. I think that the magistrates need to be aware when the police and the prosecutors present drug lords before the courts. I don't see why they're getting bail. Okay? Of course, the prosecutors have to present the evidence well and the case well. But you cannot have a situation where people are released on bail, or parolees are released on bail, and then they go out and they kill and they rape and they so forth. So I don't think we should be confused by the Constitution. Constitution doesn't say that we cannot deal with this matter. There's the revenue authorities. We've got a very efficient revenue service. We have instruments, that's my point, for dealing with this problem as it has now evolved, not just the police. We need to be serious about dismantling these gangs. At least one message I want to share with them. And I think that, who was the Deputy Minister said she's short, but I'm shorter than her. I'm sure that, nobody believes tough talk from me. But what I want to say, because, look, let's be serious about that one. But what I am saying to the gangs is that, look, you cannot confront society. You cannot traumatize society and expect that we will not respond. Now, those issues of the criminal justice system, those issues of development have to be addressed. But so as the issues of community policing. Let's go back to the days of the UDF. You remember those days? Yes, you remember those days. You were probably in the same meeting as I was. Yes, okay? What was the UDF? It was made up of civics. It was made up of religious leaders. It was made up of community-based organizations. In those days, the police were not inside, they were outside. Now they're inside, they can support what we're doing. So what I've experienced today is a strong and resilient and determined community. Use those resources, those capabilities, that energy, that love for the community to build a resilient community. The march that was being spoken about, that should take place. There should be more marches. There should be more prayer. There should be more sports occasions for young people. Rebuild the community. When I go back to Actonville, my heart also bleeds because we played soccer. We played cricket. In the street, we had strong organizations, faith-based organizations, civics. That's why we defeated apartheid, by the way. That's why. Why can't we win this battle? We can win this battle. So I've heard mixed stories about community policing, the relationship. What is the nature of the relationship between the community and the station commissioner? What I want to say to the station commissioner is, I've heard most of the people applauding you. I appreciate that. The CPFs, the structures that represent the community, are partners to the police. Station commissioners have to carry out their responsibilities with that in mind, and that's one of the ways their performance has to be assessed. And one of the things I want to say to the National Commissioner, I don't know if we have a proper way of monitoring the performance of the station commissioners. Yesterday I heard observations from the station commissioners which gave me a lot of hope and confidence, because we have strong station commissioners. But they also have to be assessed and monitored in an objective way so we can assess whether they are equal to the task, especially in those stations where crime is exploding. And by the way, when I look at the crime statistics, I can say some crime we've brought is more or less under control, like the trio crimes. If I look at the figures across the country, 30 years ago when I was the MSc in community safety, that problem was out of control. The police are now very successful, I think, in dealing with the trio crimes. But what has happened is, because of the socioeconomic problems, contact crime has exploded across the country. The kind of crimes in homes, in communities, violence, assault, murder, that tells you where we are as a country. And then the other way crime has changed is organized crime. And let me say, these organized criminals, then they are a threat to our communities, they are a threat to our democracy, they are a threat to our state. I want them to understand that it cannot continue. So I will conclude this way. I haven't said this to anyone, and some of you might find it a bit shocking, even the police. But I think that we need new legislation on organized crime. Legislation that could provide for preventative detention, because where you have a situation where our communities cannot in a safe way appear in court as witnesses, and where the police have obviously difficulty infiltrating the gangs and getting the evidence that they require for convictions, I think these people we should be able, in an accountable way, in a lawful way, to take them out of communities without having to secure convictions in a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt. Now that might sound shocking, but I believe the situation is becoming so serious that we might have to take special measures that we might not have thought necessary some years ago to deal with such people. So tomorrow I will meet with the Premier. I'm going to discuss with him this cooperation plan. I'm not satisfied. I understand that this agreement was adopted a year ago. We must own that agreement, look at what was agreed to, what action steps were agreed to, and whether they've been implemented or not, and then collectively take responsibility. It might be that there are some parts of that agreement that need rethinking. It might be that that agreement needs some additions. But I have no reason at this point to accept that that agreement has not been implemented and that we can accept that. Because that agreement, as I understand it, requires cooperation across the spheres of government. And as I said, we cannot win this battle in Mitchell's Plain without having that cooperation of the whole of the government and the whole of society in the fight against organized crime and the fight to improve safety in our communities. So the Commissioner will come back to me and tell me when he's ready. That plan is not going to be a perfect one, because I've said to you, the problems you've got in Mitchell's Plain with resourcing, in every police station here in the Western Cape and everywhere across the country we have that problem. We have the same problem of gang violence growing in Gauteng. Westbury has a gang problem. Eldorado Park has a gang problem. Go to the Eastern Cape. Go here to Cachalia. It's not only a problem in what were called colored areas. Go to the Eastern Cape, there's a problem of gang violence. And I believe that it's not just gang violence, it's organized crime. We should stare down that reality as a country, face up to it, and demand the kind of action that is required to defeat these people, because you cannot have democracy without security. That is my commitment to you this afternoon. Work with the police. Work with me. Let's see if what we are trying to build today can take us forward. I hope it will. Thank you. Bye, Danki. Bonga. It's been a pleasure to be among you today.
You may take your seat. Unfortunately, Minister is meechering, so you'll have to follow my order. Who stand and when you sit. Thank you very much, Minister, for your response. I'm going to call upon the chairperson, May Lucas. Before I call her, let me thank you all for the good interactions that we have and your